Hello and welcome to our overview of Alfresco Governance Services. Alfresco Governance Services is part of our digital business platform. As you can see, content is really the heart of our platform, with our governance services providing compliance and records management on that content. We have process for workflows and business processes around that content. We also are providing federation services that allow you to govern content that lives in other repositories, such as SharePoint, file shares, Documentum, FileNet, OpenText, etc. We also are integrated with artificial and machine learning intelligence using AWS's TextTrack, Comprehend, and Recognition. We provide search out of the box, and of course security with our permission model, as well as our security classifications and marks. We also provide reporting on that content in our system through our analytics, which is our search and insight engine, and then integration with other systems such as SAP, Salesforce, and many others. But again, today we're here to talk about governance services. So our governance services product was designed to be a very easy open source based solution. It has been certified to DoD 5015 Chapter 2, which is baseline, and Chapter 3 for managing classified records. But really the key is it can be implemented to meet a lot of other standards across the world. So things like GDPR, ISO standards, VERS in Australia, MOREC 2 in Europe, and then we also have integrations for things like blockchain for immutable records with partner products. So we give you the ability with governance services to manage any type of content as records. Your traditional images, we have a capture product that we're integrated in with, Alfresco Capture, and you can scan your documents in and we can manage those as records. We also provide support for rich media, so we can natively manage videos. You can stream those back. We do have a media management product if you need to do things like transformation or clipping of those media clips. You can also capture social media with our federation services, so things like Twitter feeds, Facebook, Instagram, things that you want to capture in your public presence as a record. And then of course your traditional physical records, and then email management. We can capture those in two ways. Directly from the Exchange server, again using our federation services, or we have an Outlook plugin that allows the user to drag and drop emails and there's attachments from Outlook to the Alfresco repository. And then of course your traditional document management, so Word, PowerPoint, PDF, Excel spreadsheets, basically any type of document that you want to manage. And last but not least, of course, I have business process management up here because the output of a process is typically a record. And our governance services product is the umbrella around all these different content types that allows you to manage those as records. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go into our demonstration. So we're now in our Alfresco collaboration site, and you can see I have various types of content here, some annual reports, some employee personnel files, some news releases, maybe some things that I want to send for records review, and some active content. So we're going to show a few examples here of how we can automate the records declaration and filing process, starting with this employee personnel files. So I'm going to go ahead and create my personnel folder. And we'll go ahead and we'll add some metadata to this. So things like an employee number, the employee name, the date that they started at our company. So we'll say back in 2015. And for right now, that's all the metadata that we'll add. We're going to go ahead and upload some files just as we normally would as we're capturing employee information. So we have things like driver's license, the I-9, resume, copy of their social security card, W-4. But kind of key here is if we look at the properties on all these documents, we can see that the information has been pushed down to the document. So our end user only had to enter this information once. So It's a sad day. Roger's decided to leave our company, so we're going to go ahead and say that today is his last day in the company, and he is now separated from the company. So now when we look at the contents of his file, we can see that everything has been automatically declared a record. And we have a little icon there that shows us that it's been declared a record. If we view one of these documents, we can see that the records management metadata has been applied to it. We're also still carrying forward that metadata. And again, this is from a collaboration site view, so the content is still visible for other end users or HR employees that may need to see this. However, the original document has now been saved into the file plan. And so if we go to our employee personnel files, we can see that we created the record folder here today. And we'll go ahead and complete this record so that the clock will start ticking. Because this is a personnel file, we're actually setting the information for retention at a folder level. So if we do view details here, we can see that this is going to be cut off on employee separation. So we did have an event, and that event got completed automatically. And we're going to go ahead and just do our manual cutoff. This is typically on a 5-minute cycle. So instead of waiting 5 minutes, I'll just go ahead and do it. And we can see now that this record folder and all of its contents will be eligible for destruction March 4th, 2027. So this is one example of how we can automate the records declaration process. Some of the other examples is maybe I have an annual report, and I now have a rule set on this annual report. So you can see we already have some records in here that's been cut off, but we'll go ahead and upload another file, and we'll just pick one of these. And now if we resort by created date, we can see that our resume has been added. It again has already been declared a record. And again, if we look at the record metadata, we can see that it is in the annual report piece of the file plan. And our retention instructions are cut off immediately, destroy immediately, so that we can see it actually be destroyed during the process of this demo. So again, if we look at our annual reports folder, we can see that the resume is now there. Again, this is on a 5-minute cycle for cutoff, so we'll just let that occur automatically. Sort of the next scenario for automating the disposition is this idea of content for records review. So I think I have a document, I think it needs to be a record. I'm going to go ahead and upload it. Again, we'll just pick one of these documents. And now we actually have a workflow that has kicked off so that we can review and determine what type of record this is. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as my user, and we get our workflow either through emails or through our task app. So you can see it attached that document. It actually kicked off some other information for us. So we have the ability to view this document from within here, or we can open it within Word since it's a Word document. But since we already know what type it is, we're going to say it's a news release and add some additional information. And again, this is our process services. So we design these screens using a form. And I'm just adding some additional comments, and I'll go ahead and approve that. And so now if we look at our processes, we can see that this completed. We do have a full audit log here as well. So you can see everything that happens at each particular step, when it was started, metadata that changed, and then when it was ended. Again, this can be saved as a record as well. But if we go ahead and we go to our file plan and we go to our news releases, we can see that that was automatically filed in our news release based on the type of record that we said it was in the business process. So again, it's still on the 5-minute cycle for cutoff, but we'll go ahead in this case and cut this off. And we can look and see that this will now be eligible to be destroyed on March 4th, 2025. And you'll notice that we brought that metadata across with us from the business process. So the last thing we have for automation is maybe the idea of some active content. And so I have a rule on this folder. We'll go ahead and edit this one document. And you can edit directly in Microsoft Office, or you can edit offline, and it will download a copy for you when you edit offline. And you can see that now it's checked out for me for offline editing. It downloaded my copy. We're going to pretend that I made some changes to it, and we're going to go ahead and upload the version that we just edited. And we'll browse and find that file to upload. So we can scroll down and we can see that we have multiple versions here, but we also have some metadata that we want to apply to this. Maybe some tags that we want to add. So I'm going to say this is a record. And we have some choices that we can make here. Again, I can have a rule that does this automatically, but we have different options here. We can actually declare this particular version as a record. We can declare the entire document as a record if we don't know the location of where it's going to be filed in the file plan. If we do, we can choose File as Record, and we can check that location or select the location, and now declare and file it. And you can see again, now it's been updated, and as we scroll down, the retention schedule has been added, information has been added to it. Again, after 5 minutes, it will be cut off. So that's how we can automate the records declaration and filing process. We have business rules behind these scenes that will perform all these functions that I just showed you as well. So at this point, we're going to switch over to our file plan, and we're going to take a look at our demo sample file plan. So you'll notice again, I've got my employee personnel files, annual reports, news releases, physical records. So we're just going to quickly create a new record type, and we're going to say that these are budget records. So I'm going to give it a name and a title. We will automatically generate a record category ID for you. However, you don't have to do that. You can create your own if you want and use that. We also do have vital records, so if you're tracking things for business continuity purposes, you can say that these are a vital record and I want to review it end of quarter, end of financial quarter, end of the year, once every quarter, so you're able to select how often you want that review process to occur. We're going to go ahead and save that, and now we're going to create our retention schedule. So we're going to click on the Create Retention Schedule, and we're going to say who is eligible to actually manage these records. And again, we're going to make this easy, and we're going to say we're going to cut off immediately when filed as a record, retain for 5 years, and then destroy it. And we can apply this either to the record folder, as we saw that example in the employee personnel files, or we can choose to apply this to the record itself, and that's what we're going to do in this instance. So I'm going to save that information, and now I'm going to create the rules for how these records are managed through their life cycle. So again, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do a cutoff. Cutoff can occur a couple of different ways. I can cut off based on a time period. So in this case, I can do end of financial month, end of financial quarter, end of financial year, end of calendar month, quarter, year, after so many days, immediately, after so many months, quarters, weeks, XML duration, so a specified period of time, or so many years. So again, for us, we said we're going to cut it off immediately when it gets filed as a record. And we can also do event-based. So for example, the employee separation was an event-based, and you can do a time and event-based. But in this case, we're going to keep it simple. And now we're going to say what happens to this document or record after we cut it off and we've retained it to the end of its life cycle, which was 5 years. So in this case, we said we were going to destroy it. We don't have to worry about a retain step because our system is smart enough to know that it won't actually be ready for destruction until 5 years from the cutoff date. You can also again do this as event-based, and if you choose to keep the record metadata after record destruction, we leave basically a stub in the record's place with the metadata that allows you to generate a destruction certificate. So I'm just going to finish my instructions here. So retain for 5 years, then destroy. And now we've created our retention schedule. Ultimately, records are filed in a record folder. So we're going to create our record folder now. Again, we can let that ID be generated, or we can just create our own record folder ID. So now we are ready to file records into the record folder. Again, this can be done from a collaboration site, or we can file directly from the records management site as well. So if we just grab some documents here, since we have some financial documents, we'll go ahead and select those. Since we're filing in directly into the file plan, there's no need to do records declaration. It knows since we're filing into this record folder that these are already official records. So again, we can see that they're incomplete. When a record is incomplete, it allows you to still edit the metadata, but we'll go ahead and complete this first one, and we'll go ahead and cut it off so that you can see that these dates are updated. So now again, if we scroll down, we can see the record information. We can see that it'll be eligible for destruction March 4th, 2025. So we've retained these documents throughout their life cycle. So we've created our file plan, we've retained them. Now we're ready to disposition those, and we do that through a disposition search. We have pre-canned searches for you. So when you click on this search, it'll automatically return results for everything that is ready for destruction as of this moment. So again, you'll notice that we do have the destroy option. I'm going to run the search that we have set up for the future, or if we look at maybe some incomplete records, we'll notice that there is no destroy option. So the destruction option does not show up until the object has met its end of its life cycle. We do have what's called an administrative delete, and that is also audited. So if something was accidentally declared a record, should not have been declared a record, then you can administratively delete it. Again, it's non-restorable, but it is audited. So we're just going to select a couple of these documents, and we're going to choose to destroy them. We get our first confirmation, our second confirmation, are you really sure you want to delete these? Tells me they were successfully destroyed. And at this point, I did not choose to retain the metadata on these records, so I have no option to create the destruction report. However, I can do that from the audit trail as well. So we also may need to interrupt that destruction process by placing holds on content. So you do have the ability to have holds. If we look at our audit hold here, we can see that we have two documents on hold and 2 records on hold. Again, records are visualized with this icon. The hold is visualized with this little snowflake. We can delete the hold a couple of different ways. So we can keep the hold, but just remove all the objects that are on hold from it. So now we see everything that disappeared. Or if we look at our holds, we do have the option to delete holds. So if we want to place a hold on content, we can do it on both active content and records. So I'm using our top search bar that allows me just a full text search, and I was looking for things that had the word budget. And there we can see this is a piece of content just based on where it's located and the action menu as well. In this case, this is in the file plan. So I'm going to go ahead and select a couple of these. And we're going to choose, again, selected items and add to hold. We'll add that back to our audit hold. And when the screen refreshes, you'll see that now there is a snowflake indicating that these objects have been placed on hold. And if we go back to our file plan and to our hold, we'll see that it exists in the audit hold. Again, I can browse to each individual item to remove it from the hold or add it to a hold. Objects can be on multiple holds as well. And again, you can search and find objects and place as many of those as you want on hold from the search results screen. So you'll notice that we do have some other searches available here. So we saw the incomplete. We can look at things that are eligible for destruction in the future, things that are ready to be cut off. In this case, our 5 minutes have elapsed, so we should be good there. Things that are eligible for transfer, records and record folders that are on hold, and then vital records due for review. In this case, again, I don't have any vital records, so nothing to review there. So we're going to take a look at some of the administrative tools that we have. And again, our audit trail is key. You're able to search by a date range, by a specific user, or by a specific event in the system. So let's say that we want to see everything that has been destroyed in the system, and I'm going to limit this to 500 records or results. And when we run the audit report, so I'm going to run a different search, our delete object search, and we'll run that now. And you can see that it's only showing me 100, but there could be, a lot more records in here that meet that criteria. But I do have everything. I've got some email records, some other types of records here. If we click on details on one of these objects, we can actually see the event that occurred, the user that performed the event, the date and time that it occurred, that user's role in the organization, and we're going to talk about roles next, and then its location in the file plan or retention schedule. So again, I can click on this and have it actually take me to that item. Again, because we chose not to keep the metadata, in that case, we don't have access to that item. But our next option here that we're going to talk about is our roles. We give you a number of out-of-the-box roles here, but you can create your own roles and you can decide what functionality that you want to assign to that role. So in this case, I have an end-user role, and all I really want them to do is to be able to view records. So they can see it and make a copy of it. And we'll go ahead and save that now. And then we have our records management role. If we edit that role, you can see that they can pretty much do everything from audit to classification to configuring the system to cutting off to retention transfers, events, folder control, hold controls, records, etc. Basically everything they would need to do. And then we have a records officer role where they can basically do everything but the configuration steps themselves. So once we define these roles, we can assign users or groups to these roles. For my demo system, I just use users, so you can see that I've got different users playing this role. And then we will assign these roles to the file plan. And so if we go ahead and look at the permissions for our demo sample file plan, we can see that we've got a records management group. We can have read and file or read only if we just want them to be able to see. And we'll go ahead and assign our 3 other roles that we had. So our demo, and roles are designated by the double head. So we'll go ahead and add the end user. We'll make him read only. We'll add our records manager and our records officer, and we're going to say that these 2 have read and file. So now we'll go ahead and save this. And I'm logged in as my demo user right now, so we're going to log out and we're going to log in as our end user first, so you can see how that affects the file plan. So again, we actually had 2 file plans out there, but now we can only see one as this user. And you'll notice we have just view details, and we only can see certain parts of the file plan. So this user is limited into what he can see. And then when we get to a record level, they only have the download option. Whereas if we log in as our records officer, again, they have a little more options. They can see everything for the file plan. When we get to a record folder level, you can see they have even more options. And when we get to an actual record level, even more options. So again, allows you to limit not only what they can see in the file plan, but what functions they can perform in the file plan as well. So the last thing that we're going to finish up with is we're going to log back in as our demo user. And we're going to talk about security classifications and security marks. So security classifications are hierarchical, meaning if you have top secret, you can see top secret, secret, confidential. If you have confidential, you can only see confidential and unclassified, but not secret and top secret. The other option that we have are what are called security marks, and you can create your own marking groups, and those allow you to actually mark content, and then the user will have to have the mark in order to see that content. And marks have 3 different rules associated with them. They can have an all rules, which means if the content has 2 marks on it, that user will have to have both of those marks in order to see it, or the any rule. So any one of these 2 marks, they'll be able to see it, or it can act like a security classification and be hierarchical based on the order that you create the marks in. So again, I'm logged in as my super user demo, and if we scroll down, we can see that he has 27 documents that he can see in this record folder. So we're going to log in as the records manager now. So we're using those same accounts. And we're going to go to our security site. And again, this user can see 15 of those 27. He basically does have both of these since I set the all rule on these security marks. But you can see that because he can see them, he can see what they're marked. Again, so this is a great way to really apply an extra layer of security for things that need to be very highly controlled pieces of content or records. So if you think of things like data privacy, PII, merger and acquisition information, even financials for a company, it gives you an extra layer of security on top of your normal permission model. So the last thing that I want to finish with is just to give you a glimpse of our digital workspace. So again, this is based on our ADF framework. That same structure that we saw through our share interface, we can see here still within our ADW interface as well. And again, so security examples, we can see, again, all 27 of those documents. However, if we go look at annual reports, we can see that these documents have been made records, and we give you a visual cue in the digital workspace that they have been made a record. And if we click on one and we click our little eye here, this will show us again the information about this, and we're able to see the records management information as well. We also do have the option to declare a record from here, so this is a manual declaration from this interface. However, any rules that I have set on these folders in Share will apply when they're uploaded into this folder using the ADW. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose Declare Record here. And now we can see that it has been made a record. So I wanted to thank you for your time, showing you how Alfresco Governance Services works in conjunction with our content services, our process services, and then of course our governance services. We do have a demo of our Federation services with Manage in Place with SharePoint available on YouTube as well. Thank you for your time.